previous part of the devlog, I outlined the development process and prepared groundwork for prototype 1 by writing the basis for the navigation. Then I explained the navigation and pathfinding in detail in a separate video. In this part, I get into prototype 1 and lay out the foundations for a big system I've aptly named Routine. Speaking for names, if you get confused later by the names of the prototypes, check out the devlog part 1. You still won't understand the names, but it would mean a lot to me. But seriously, I'm really bad at giving names, and all my energy went into coming up with the title of the game. So we have an NPC who can go to places. Cool. So, what now? Remember, a couple of videos ago, I said I wanted to create a self-acting ecosystem that didn't need any input from the player, it just reacted to their actions. So the NPCs seem to have to live their own lives. That life will be driven by routine, a repeating series of scripts that send NPCs off to work, to rest, and to sleep, and then back to work, rest, and sleep again until some special event happens. If the NPC doesn't die from this, they return to the routine's captivity to work, rest, and sleep again. This system is getting uncomfortably lifelike. But anyway, first step is to make them a building to work in. No need for an exit, they are not going on a holiday anyway. Then I build the navigation region and add another worker. I create jobs for the rooms, which don't really do much other than exist, but for now I just need their coordinates. The jobs are collected by the new kind of NPC, the manager, into a list that the workers get from him. The workers will visit all the jobs by iterating through this list. At this point I made a brief trip into the world of avoidance. It's a quite interesting tool within Navigation Agent that allows NPCs to see each other, meaning they calculate their path without touching each other. This works well as long as they have enough room to avoid each other, but if they don't, oh boy. So in the end I removed this feature, considering that the perspective would make it less spectacular to see the characters moving closer together than they should. The prototype already contains the space, but not the time. The workers know they have to move on the next task when they get to the current one. They don't spend time anywhere. This is not very realistic. So I need to define a clock that determines the length of the workers' days. When I designed it, I imagined a multifunctional device that could be used to specify, among other things, the starting hour and the length of the hours in seconds, of course, and that would send a signal at the end of each hour to control the objects that were watching it. Does it sound simple? I'm going to have to disappoint you. For a long time this was the most complicated thing I've made for the game. Navigation, scripting, behavior design. It's a child's play. After programming a simple clock, tell me you're a good programmer. In retrospect it doesn't seem that complicated, but it was the first time I was confronted with the fact that there's a bit too much math in game development. I'm not going to outline the development process now, because that would result in a very long video that would get blocked by YouTube for swearing, but I might make a separate video about this. Once the clock is ticking, I can work on the behavior of the NPCs. After that, the workers will watch the clock, and only go to the dormitory when it's bedtime, and only get up when it's time to wake up. And if they have done their work and it's not yet evening, they will go out to the hall to rest. To feel their day better, I set time limits at work. Workers still don't do anything at work, but at least they are pretending to work better and not leaving immediately. And if they can sleep, they can have energy. I added a variable to measure the energy levels, which decreases every second of work and increases every second of sleep. And what happens when they run out of energy? I constantly check the energy, and if it goes below a certain level, the worker immediately goes back to sleep and only comes back to work the next day. At the moment, workers know their jobs immediately, and that's not very realistic. I've built a verification to see if the worker has a job yet, and if not, to go to the manager. That way he will only get a job if he goes to the manager and asks for it. With a small improvement, I made the manager not just hand out the jobs, but distribute them to the workers. It requires that the workers announce themselves in advance to the manager when the game starts, who will do the distribution when the first worker arrives. The reason why the manager has to wait so long to do this, to make sure that all his workers have checked in by the time he does it. This way, the workers will not always go to every job, but everyone will have their own job, which is randomly assigned at the first start. Prototype 1 has completed, although this project was still a wing test. The most important mechanisms were already beginning to unfold. One of these is the state machine, which manages the behavior of the workers. Next up, Prototype Fanciat, where I tell you how I created the horrible program monster I named Routine.